Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday's Reading the Red. It's dry out there at the moment, but it wasn't earlier, pouring with rain. Monday. It always seems to rain on Monday. So here in Matthew 15, our new chapter, we are looking at the Pharisees and the Sadducees. These are the guys that were really often enemies of Jesus in many ways, because they were upholding the religious traditions of the Jews. And Jesus coming in effect interrupted that kind of status quo. And he was saying, in effect, I'm challenging you and what you're presenting as regards to what God is about in these days. And they did not take to that too kindly. And they began to react and challenge Jesus. And they came one particular occasion, we read, where they challenged Jesus about his disciples not washing their hands in a particular way and eating their food. And in verse 3, they say, and he says to them in response to that, and he answered them and said, and then written in red, why do you yourselves transgress the commandments of God for the sake of your traditions? So he says, in reaction to what they said, which was, why don't your disciples wash properly when they eat their food? And then Jesus responds to them and says, well, why do you, in effect, transgress or break the laws? Why do you break the laws for your tradition? So he, in effect, reallocates them. He kind of pressures them and says to them, you justify yourself, first of all, before I start justifying the disciples for not doing what you say they should do. And so that sense of what Jesus does is he often doesn't answer the questions that people present to him. He presents, as it were, a question in response to their question he gave them, so that they focus on the question he's asking rather than him focusing on the question that they want him to answer. And that's a really good way of getting through life, that if you want to deflect the responsibility of answering questions that people ask you, use the principle that Jesus asked when he asked questions. So he never answered the questions. He presents the question to them. He re-spins it. He turns it on its head. And so now they're left thinking, well, what's he talking about? And these senses of having traditions, of having, as it were, human values, of having things that we think are right. Because we think they're right, they're right. Well, there's a lot of nonsense going on in life when you think about it. I mean, we've had 8 children and we've brought up 8 children, and as the years have passed, we've dealt with our children in different ways in some respects, because we've kind of been more lenient as we've got along the way. But each child is unique. But so often, the early ones, we thought we disciplined them so much, and then the later ones, we less disciplined them. And it seems like that we discipline them in a silly way. Why does it matter if they hold their fork here, or they hold their knife there, or they hold this? So many silly things that we bring burdens upon our lives. We can't do that because of this, and we can't do this because of that. Silly things that we put pressures on ourselves. And this is exactly what the disciples were doing in regards to making people wash in a particular way. He was pressurizing, they were pressurizing the people and making it difficult to connect to God. And that was the key thing. These Pharisees and Sadducees were supposed to bring people to God, but these burdens were putting people into such a condition where they felt unjustified or unworthy to come to God. I wonder, how many things do you do each day in your life which are not really that important, but you make them a big thing when they're really not? God is not that bothered about them. And so it may be a time now to start reevaluating, God, what is really important? Take advantage of these scriptures today. Bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.